videotaped at the studios of City Video at the Rage nightclub. It is now time for Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells you the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition. And now here's the host of your show, Paul Stanford and Paul Loney.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show is a production of our political committee, the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp.
Yes, and good evening. And tonight we're fortunate enough to have a special guest, Lanny Sinkin, attorney from Hawaii. Welcome, Lanny.
My pleasure to be here.
All right. And as Paul said, that this is a production of our political committee, and we have an initiative out, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. And that initiative, which is on the streets right now, is a comprehensive regulation system for cannabis that will allow it to be sold for medical patients in pharmacies to adults over 21 in state liquor stores, and allow our farmers to grow hemp as a crop. And is there anything else on that, Paul?
I think you covered it pretty well. The money, the proceeds from it will go to the state general fund, so it'll cut taxes for all of us. 90% of it goes to the state general fund, 8% for drug treatment programs, and 1% for a drug education program, 1% for a state committee to promote industrial hemp.
All right. So it's like I say, it's a comprehensive program initiative to get this. And if you'd like to get a copy of our initiative, we can have you call our office, and the number is 503-235-4606. And let's see, and tonight we have Lanny Sinkin with us, and he's an attorney involved in some of the marijuana activist case here in Portland. And so I wonder if you could tell us why you're here tonight, Lanny.
I'm here because we are scheduled to appear before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that's going to be sitting in Portland, Oregon on 2 civil rights cases. In both cases, we have the same set of facts on one issue, and Paul Stanford was involved very deeply with that. The large case is Floyd Landreth, an activist here in Portland who has been arrested numerous times for his political activities, has his materials seized, lots of different actions taken by the city of Portland. And that case is a classic civil rights case because the city of Portland, through its police officers, its city attorney, its city council, has engaged in a systematic campaign to suppress those who are trying to change the hemp laws.
So you're saying that it includes the city council and the mayor?
The defendants named in this case are 18 police officers, 6 or 7 city attorneys, Mayor Vera Katz, and all the members of the city council at the time the case was filed 5 years ago. Mr. Blumenauer has moved on, and Mr. Lindbergh has retired. They are defendants in the case. And that case is really about the neighborhood associations and the police department engaging in a conspiracy to stop Floyd Landreth and others from trying to change the hemp laws. And when that conspiracy became acknowledged by the police, after Mr. Landreth was arrested, at one point the police officer in charge of the arrest was interviewed by the press and said he had arrested Mr. Landreth because he did not agree with what Mr. Landreth stood for, that he disagreed with his political effort, and that the police and the neighborhood associations were going to stop the effort. That's a classic civil rights case. It went on from there, the numerous complaints we filed with the city attorney's office, with the city council, trying to get them to take action, and their repeated refusal to do so ended up making all of them defendants as well. The second case was really about those activities engaged in by the police department that were designed to prevent people from signing petitions for the previous marijuana initiative, that the campaign to pay for schools through regulating hemp, or I forget exactly the title.
Our previous incarnation, basically.
The previous incarnation of OCTA. What we had was police officers campaigning on public time in their official position to try and prevent the gathering of signatures, and that they were violating both state law and the United States Constitution in that tax money was being used to fund one side of a political campaign, and the police were engaged in an illegal effort. When that was brought to the attention of the mayor's office, the mayor said basically she didn't care because she didn't agree with the initiative. So on that count, the mayor was named as a defendant as well. It brought in 5 other police officers into the case. And we filed a separate case on behalf of the new marijuana initiative that's pending now in Oregon, gathering signatures now, trying to get an injunction to prevent the police from engaging in political activity illegally. That was thrown out by the same judge that threw out the other case, saying that there were no federal claims in either case. We are asking the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse the judge and remove the judge and give us a judge who's not so biased, who will treat impartially the factual and legal claims that are in the case.
So it just, you know, it is very amazing. I'll have to say I am involved in these cases as an attorney, but still, when I stop and think about it, it's amazing that a police officer can say that, you know, we don't like what a certain person stands for, and so therefore we're going to stop them.
Well, the Landreth case isn't really a hemp case in that sense. It's a straight-up First Amendment civil rights case, that the city government can think for a moment that they have the right to suppress unpopular political movements and use public resources to do it is phenomenal. And the fact that the city attorney's office was placed on notice repeatedly by letters from Paul Loney and letters from me that this was happening, took no action to do anything about it, the fact that the city council took no action to do anything about it, ends up making the city liable for extensive damages, for extensive attorney's costs, in a situation that we were astonished would actually have developed this far. We would have thought that when a police officer arrests somebody and says up front to the press, I arrested him because I don't agree with what he stands for and we're going to stop his political movement, that the city government would respond immediately and say this is totally out of bounds, totally unconstitutional, totally illegal, and the city attorney, the city council, whoever would have said to the chief of police, stop this activity.
Instead, they've supported him.
And
They've said, oh, he's doing the right thing.
Right.
That's pretty outrageous.
So the Ninth Circuit will hear the appeals March the 5th, and then we have to wait for them to issue a ruling, which I think we're fairly confident is going to reverse the dismissals and return the cases for trial. The Ninth Circuit is moving a little slower than normal these days because the Republicans in Congress won't confirm judges for the Ninth Circuit, so they're short about a third of their judges. But we would hope we'd have a ruling perhaps somewhere near the end of the year, September, October of '98, we'd have a ruling and be back down at the district court level, and then make the city work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, like you say, that, you know, the fact that the city's not gone this far, I mean, it's just shocking that, you know, it's costing the taxpayers all this money to defend a case which, you know, should have never gone on.
Do you know if the Ninth Circuit's coming to hear any other cases, or is this the...
No, the Ninth Circuit is here for a whole group of cases, and they will be sitting here during that week of March the 5th, Monday through Friday. They'll be in Portland. They come up to listen to cases where the parties are in Oregon to make it convenient for the parties so they don't all have to come to San Francisco.
That's good.
And I do know that the Ninth Circuit recent rulings on the Civil Rights Act have been fairly closely aligned with our arguments to the Ninth Circuit. This is an act that was designed to prevent the suppression of unpopular political movements. It came out of the time when the Ku Klux Klan was in control or very influential over southern governments, right after the slaves had been released. And the law was written to protect both ex-slaves that were trying to gain their full citizenship rights and the Republican Party, which at that time was trying to help the Afro-American population of the South achieve full citizenship. It's a very different Republican Party today, obviously. So the law was designed both to protect people suffering discrimination and to protect political groups in an unpopular situation where they were suffering from official repression. So we view the case as really the anti-hemp reform movement having taken over the government of Portland and the pro-hemp reform movement suffering from official government repression by this party that's taken power, and that's a classic model for applying the civil rights law.
Yeah, it certainly seems to me that, you know, that anybody, you know, the city government has said that anybody who's out to reform the hemp laws is fair game for the police department.
And I think it's important for people in Portland to realize, however you feel about hemp, if they can do this to the hemp reform movement today, they can do it to you tomorrow, whatever your particular cause may be, if it's unpopular with those who hold power and control the police department. And what we're talking about is repeated arrests, a seizure of materials. We have this glorious First Amendment incident with the Mount Tabor pub, which at the time was owned and operated by Mark Meek and had a temporary liquor license. They came to him with the presidents of 2 neighborhood associations, the police officer that is the liaison to the State Liquor Commission, and the city employee that's in charge of liquor licenses. And they told him that he had to take down the handbills that were posted in the neighborhood for something called Hemp Awareness Week, which was going to be an event at Mount Tabor. He had to take the word hemp off of the marquee of the Mount Tabor pub, and that he had to prevent Floyd Landreth from speaking at the event to be held there. So the word hemp itself had become their target, and they didn't want the word displayed in public leaflets or on the marquee. And the police and city officials were there with the neighborhood association leadership to say, you can't use this word. It's just a phenomenal incident of First Amendment violation.
You know, all too often, the marijuana prohibition is used to expand police intrusion and desecration of our civil rights. So, you know, what we're trying to do is circulate a petition to stop that. Don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to plug our initiative petition. We need your help to put the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on the ballot. So please give us a call. We'd like to send you our petition. Call us at 503-235-4606. We need help. We're starting to pay petitioners. We need financial assistance, and if you'd like us to send you petitions, we'd be happy to do that. You can also watch this TV show and print our petition from the internet if you have internet access. So look at www.crrh.org to see just a huge resource in terms of information on the internet. Not only is this TV series on our website, but we also have ABC's special Pot of Gold, CNN's special Higher Times, the movie Reefer Madness from the 30s, a USDA World War II movie from '43 called Hemp for Victory. Literally, there's over 50 different videos available there. So if you've got a modem, you can watch those.
Yeah.
So back to the case there. You know, Lanny, you worked with the Christic Institute in Washington,
Right.
didn't you? So you were the director of litigation for that and helped publicize some of the Iran-Contra.
I was there for 5 years, and we worked on the Iran-Contra case, and that it's again the same issue. It's, do we have a democracy in this country? Do we have a republic in this country where the power remains with the people even when they delegate it to the government? Or is the government up for grabs by those that have their own private agenda for world domination, economic domination, whatever? Is the government, they're going to be their tool regardless of what the people want or what the people think? And the war on drugs, as Paul Stanford mentioned, has become a tool for political repression. I think if you can even move it up into the spiritual realm, in looking at a lot of the things going on around the world and to the planet, on the planet, I think that part of the reason there's a marijuana suppression movement is that for some people, not for all people, but for some people, the experience of smoking marijuana has brought them closer to identifying with the earth and connecting to the earth. And that the more you identify and connect with the earth, the more you are prepared to oppose the corporate programs for dismantling the earth, consuming the earth, chewing it up, polluting it, all those things. And that therefore, that experience represents a danger to corporate domination of the planet. And that the marijuana suppression movement is in part motivated by a spiritual worship of the death of the planet versus those that relate to the life of the planet. And it can take that dimension. So that only through an ability to articulate those kind of things, to approach people with why marijuana should be legalized, regulated, whatever approach you want to take, and have the right to speak and convince people, can we stop this death-worshipping corporate culture from devouring the planet? And they know that, we know that, and the American political system, the United States political system, was supposedly designed so that ideas would compete with each other in an impartial, neutral playing field. And in fact, that's not what's happening. The city of Portland has taken sides and put public resources on one side of the issue, and we hope that this lawsuit will stop them and others. We hope that coming out of this lawsuit, people trying to campaign on the hemp issue will be viewed as deserving the protection of the Civil Rights Act, and that will be useful to people all over the country if we can get that kind of ruling.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back for a second to, you know, you said with the spiritual realm, that for some people who partake of marijuana, it affords them a closer connection with the planet Earth, which would make sense when you stop and look at the history of humans as a race, as a separate species. One of the first plants that scientists agree that was domesticated by humans was, you know, the cannabis plant. Mm-hmm. And so that was, you know, at the time when we had a much closer connection to the planet. So that was one of the first plants that we realized was sacred to us and of many uses. And so therefore, you know, even today it kind of relates for people. Some people, like you say, it relates back to that point.
We have over in Hawaii, we have a church that has been set up around the hemp plant. And there have been various cases brought. There's a prosecution now underway of the chief minister of that church, and the higher courts have not upheld it as a spiritual practice to use hemp. I suspect that's eventually going to go to the United States Supreme Court, and there'll be different rulings. We'll see what happens. But I think there is a spiritual dimension. We're fortunate in living in Hawaii. We have such a high spiritual content in the very atmosphere we live in on a daily basis that stimulants are hardly necessary. Other people, however, in other environments, I think, find it useful as a way of breaking through barriers that are set up by a highly intellectualized culture where we get so up in our minds that we lose touch with the flowers and the trees and the dolphins and whatever. Mm-hmm. And that it offers an opportunity. And basically the bottom line is, if you're engaged in something that's not harming someone else, it's not the state's business to tell you yay or nay. Yeah. Those are your decisions, and what we call victimless crimes. We have people who have used victimless crimes as a tool to enact repressive laws and gain more power over people and make people afraid. And the more you make people afraid about one thing, the more you make them afraid about another. And the more you can get them to act out of fear rather than out of love or a higher purpose, the more you get them to conform to a police state mentality.
Yeah. Well, you know, it relates back to we're talking about, you know, our lawsuit. You know, with the civil rights case for hemp activists, because the Civil Rights Act, like you said, came out of for ex-slaves and Republicans trying to help them. You know, it was a sort of like a status. If you were ex-slave, you know, you could be oppressed, and that's what they were trying to stop. You know, and it's the same thing now. You know, if you happen to be a campaigner for the change of hemp laws, you can be oppressed. And
that's a very good point. We must remember to make that point to the Ninth Circuit.
And you know
it's almost a status offense now. Yes, if you're a hemp activist, you're fair game.
Yeah.
And you know what? No other political movement has to deal with that.
No.
You know, I'm out there petitioning, as are many of our activists across the state, and no other political movement has to deal with the paranoia that our supporters deal with. You know, I would say only 1 out of 3 people who want to sign our petition will actually sign it because they're afraid to see their name on there. Now our opponents, our opponents say that, you know, that doesn't exist, but in fact, paranoia is one of the things that scares a lot of people from helping us. And I want to urge people that we have to stand up. You know, we're circulating this petition, and we need your help right now to put it out there. So flash the number on the screen, please, and call that number, 235-4606. If you're outside the Portland area, call 503-235-4606. Help us restore hemp. You know, we were talking about flowers just a moment ago, and the spiritual use of cannabis, you know, and how that contributes to corporate death culture. The whole thing with industrial hemp right now in several countries, they're starting, including Canada this year, they're starting to allow commercial cultivation of hemp, but they limit the THC level that's in the hemp plants to 0.3, 0.3% THC. Now, by doing that, the only way you can limit a hemp plant or a marijuana plant to that low a level of THC is you've got to breed out the flowers. And if you breed out the flowers, you don't have as much THC because there's more THC in the resin. Now, by breeding out the flowers, that means it doesn't have seeds. And if you don't have an industrial hemp crop with the low THC strains only produces about 600 pounds of seeds, while a Notre Dame study in '75 on the wild hemp fields of southern Illinois showed that those wild hemp fields produce over 4 tons of seeds per acre. Now, you take that 4 tons of seed and you press it and you get over 700 gallons of oil that will drive any diesel engine. And that, I believe, is another key reason that hemp is prohibited, is because the petrochemical industries don't want to deal with biodiesel. And hemp produces more than 3 times more biodiesel or vegetable oil fuel, which doesn't take any conversion at all to run an internal combustion diesel engine.
Probably smells better.
It smells like French fries. It smells much, much better. And so it's not toxic. And
Well, it has the hemp oil also has many medicinal and nutritional
Right.
qualities as well.
And when it goes rancid, when it's not a good food anymore, it's a good fuel.
It's a good fuel.
Right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, is that, and it's kind of, it's really interesting now, is that why they're saying that it should only be, you know, this industrial hemp should be with, you know, with no flowering tops. I mean, I don't know. It's just, you know, these call me crazy, but it seems kind of cruel to a plant not to allow it to get to the flower, you know, point, because these industrial, you know, or these wild hemp fields in you know, Kansas, you know, Nebraska, Southern Illinois. I mean, that's
They're still low THC.
Yeah, exactly.
They're only like 1.5%, which is still not psychoactive.
No, it's still.
But they want to limit it so that the petrochemical industries don't have to compete. That's the only real reason there can be.
Well, when you go back to the original making of hemp illegal and the campaign to make it illegal, and the petrochemical industry and the pharmaceutical industry involving themselves in that campaign because hemp was coming on so strong.
Right, exactly. And the cotton growing states too. There's new machinery that made hemp a fraction of its former price. It dropped 100-fold from 50 cents a ton down to 1/2 cent a ton. And so suddenly it was competitive and they had to stop it.
It's important to know these kinds of historical facts because much of what is being done now, having been based originally on a lie and based on an economic motivation, has led to a continuing propaganda campaign with a lot of lies, a lot of fear, a lot of manipulation, when in fact underlying it is often a very strong political agenda. The Partnership for a Drug-Free America, heavily funded by alcohol and
pharmaceutical
interests,
Tobacco.
Right.
These are people who would be harmed by hemp being allowed to compete with them. They know the truth and they don't care about the truth. What they care about is protecting their economic interests.
Well, like you say, you know, remembering the history is very important. You hear it said about other, you know, civil rights movements out there. Is like one of the first things that an oppressed people loses is their history. And in a sense, one of the first things that we lost as marijuana activists and advocates, you know, we lost our history. I mean, there's only thanks to some people like Jack Herrera going back, or people doing the research, were able to bring back up all this wonderful information about hemp and marijuana.
What is the name of that book?
The Emperor Wears No Clothes.
Wears No Clothes.
You know, I mean,
First edition of that was written in my house way
Cool.
back in '85. But I want to remind people to call us. I always have to stress this because we need your help. Wherever you are, help us. Call 235-4606. That's 235-4606. You know, Lanny, I hope you can come back for the next show as well for next week's episode, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the court case and some of the incidents regarding our initiative that this civil rights suit that the Federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is coming here to Portland to hear this week.
Be happy to.
When we first announced we were going to have this petition drive, the only opposition they had in the media was from the police, and several police agencies came forward. And even after this suit, as recently as a town hall show that was filmed recently by local KATU TV, the police come forward and oppose our initiative and are using they're in uniform, you know, and they're there. In fact, when I went on town hall, I had a DEA agent sitting next to me, and next to him was a captain in the Portland Police Drug and Vice Unit, and then another Oregon State Trooper. They're the main people up front and center opposing us, and that has a very chilling effect on our activists. Like I said, we only get 1 out of 3 people who say they want to sign our petition because they say they're afraid. And they're trying to escalate that fear by coming out and being our main opponents.
Part of what people need to understand in the constitutional dimension of this case, one of the elements, Article 4 of the United States Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government. What that means is that you may delegate power to a representative government, but the representative government still must acknowledge that the power resides in the people, so that the forces of government, the resources of government, are only to be used on an impartial basis regarding the general public. They are not to be put at the service of any one faction within the community. So when you see police officers in uniform, the case where we were seeking the injunction started when the last initiative was announced to change the hemp laws, and the television stations went to the police station, and out came Officer Jensen, who was the official spokesman for the police department, in uniform, making a statement denigrating the motives of the people who were putting forward this initiative, discouraging people from signing it. That was a use of his official position, which he's paid for by all the taxpayers. Those are pro-hemp, anti-hemp, or neutral, are all paying his salary. And he's using his position and that publicly paid time to take a partisan position on an initiative. That's against state law in Oregon, but more fundamentally, it's unconstitutional. That when the government is allowed to use public resources to present only one side of an issue, or to appear, as Paul's just talking about, in opposition to another side of an issue, you have a very big constitutional problem on your hands. Because as we said about the earlier violations of civil rights, if they can do that to the hemp movement today, they can do it to you tomorrow. If you want to put up an initiative for anything, and the official state policy is to oppose you, and they can put state officials on state time into debate with you, spend state money to oppose you, then it's a one-sided campaign. It's not even a level playing ground. And this, you really should not allow this. And I would hope that people would tell the city of Portland and the state police that they should not be appearing in these kinds of forums to campaign for one side of the issue.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You know, the police have got to stay out of this. It's not only state law, it's like you say, it's constitutional. And we all got to stand up for that and tell them no whenever we see them on TV. But thanks for watching, folks. Once again, give us a phone call at 503-235-4606 and get our initiative. Come down and meet Bruce, our office manager, and help out in the office stuffing envelopes. And we'll mail you copies of the petition if you want. And you can help go out and get signatures on our initiative.
What's the address?
What's our address? P.O. Box?
The mailing address is CRRH at P.O. Box 86714, Portland, Oregon 97286, right there on your screen. So write that down, give us a call. We'll be happy to send you out some petitions. Right now we have until the end of June, and we're really pushing our petition drive. Call us and help us put this on the ballot. Thanks for watching. And thanks for coming, Lanny. I'd like to thank both of you attorneys for standing up for all of us and our civil rights and taking on these forces and taking them into the courts and now getting this to an oral argument in the Court of Appeals. Thank you. Good night.